Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel, Watercolor Impressions. I've been doing series of winter paintings, so I thought I would continue it, and I thought I would do something totally different. This reference was taken in Parkway Mega near Quebec. I do enjoy quite a bit of wildlife nature, so I thought I would do a wildlife painting this week. Before we get on to it, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And let's get started, guys. So I always start with the light wash, that means like clouds. For the clouds I'm using yellow ochre and a little bit of cadmium orange, and as it comes down, so I'm gonna grade down a little bit, so I'm gonna using a little bit of cobalt blue. I wasn't painting for a week because I've been sick and I was so rusty, but I want to do something this week for my YouTube channel. Since being a year, I never missed a week because every Saturday I post a YouTube channel. I think the consistency also matters in your painting as well. As an artist, you have to develop yourself. It's kind of like swimming or going to the gym. You have to practice your art every day, or else you're gonna feel a little bit of rustiness, while you paint. But miraculously, I don't know, for some reason my strokes are really confident when I was doing this painting. Since it's a winter painting and it's like super dull, but I want to throw in a little bit of colors here and there. But as soon as it comes to the foreground, I'm introducing a little bit of green and a little bit of Payne's gray in it, and I want to use this gradient a little bit of darker because this is gonna act as a lead-in for us. And I also mix a little bit of yellow ochre in it, and I'm taking a little bit to the midground as well. And like for the sprayer, I also sprayed some water on my watercolor paper, so that gives a little bit of textures here and there, as you can see. So I'm also testing it out, and I put a little bit of Payne's gray where the shadow, where that like the wooden. So I did wet the paper a little bit at the background. You can see clean brush, clean water. So this will help us to give a little bit of loose edges once I put the painting there, as you can see. And you can also hear a music at the background. My neighbor always starts playing whenever I start recording a YouTube video. It's kind of coincidence. I think he doesn't like me. So let's paint the trees at the background. For the trees, I'm kind of using Payne's gray and a little bit of green in my brush. And I also put a little bit of blue here and there, because when you see the winter or winter scene, everything looks gray. And when you paint it and if you show it to someone, they're not gonna buy it or they don't enjoy it. So I tend to put a lot of colors, and I take a twist in it so that it gives a really good impressions for the eyes. I'm also throwing some Payne's gray as well as burnt amber at the bottom because I want to create a gradient that also helps to have a visual clue as a trees, and there's a lot of bushes and everything you can imagine of. But I'm pretty sure that I'm keeping my paper wet because I'm using Arches rough surface, because Arches tend to dry slower, so you can put colors and it makes pretty good. So now I'm taking a tiny little brush and I'm taking Payne's gray and burnt amber in my brush, and I'm just putting some lines here and there so that it gives the impression of trees. Like when I painted these trees, after I finished the painting, I made sure that I want to push this background far away. I did do it, but I didn't show up in the process, but in my final image you can see that. And there is also like a meadow which is on the background as well, so I kept that as it is. And I'm also painting the trees and keep going at it. Now let's focus on the adding some details at the background. For the background, there's deers at the background. I want to make sure that there's quite a bit of distance from the foreground to the background. So for the deers, I'm just like literally doing a mark, and when you see this painting from far, and it will give illusion that it's some kind of trees. For the deers, I used raw amber and a little bit of Payne's gray in it, and there's also that meadow at the background. I want to create a gradient, and there's for a distance it looked really sharp, so I want to soften the edge here and there to give illusion of distance in that mountain. And at the bottom I'm also throwing some colors. As I said, arches tend to dry slower, so you can keep on adding colors and soften edges and whatever you want. So once I'm happy with it, then let's focus on the deers in the midground. It's the same thing when you do wildlife or any kind of painting you do. Think everything in shapes. If you think it's an animal or anything else, you're gonna lose, because our brain tends to know, because we tend to draw from our head and not from seeing, because that's a mistake I did when I started painting. Because when I started looking everything as shapes, it made my life easier. And it doesn't have to be super accurate, because it's in the midground and that's not our focal point. Because when this painting is seen from far, it will give an illusion that, and people tend to have an illusion that it's a deer. And when you do the midground, make sure the value is a little bit lighter compared to our foreground. So that's why I'm using a little bit of sometimes to push something, I use white paint in my brush. So I use Chinese white. You can see I used amber and Chinese white in my brush. You could see, and it has a little bit of lesser value than our foreground. But as it comes to the foreground, I'm going to introduce a darker value. Before the painting dries off, I'm taking Payne's gray, and at the bottom I'm adding a little bit of gradient there. So that's how it casts a shadow from the ground where they are standing. And I'm trying to add a little bit of details here and there, but I'm not trying to get focused on all the details. Being said that, I should have used a smaller brush, but I kept going with this brush because this is my favorite brush from Escoda, and I'm keep building it until I'm happy with it. So now let's focus on the major figure, the major deer in our focal point. For his head, I used burnt amber, and for his antlers, I'm going to be using Payne's gray. For his legs, I don't want to add all the details. I just want to create a mark and see how it looks like. When I was doing this, the major deer, I was making sure to see it as a shape than anything else. Now I started comparing shapes, which is next to each other. You could see for his body, and I'm using amber, a little bit of white paint in it. And it's kind of surprising that sometimes when I paint, you would be surprised like how much you have to add or how much you have to do it just to look like what you're painting. I was surprised by how much less thing I have to do in this painting. For this wooden thing, they put food and water in this the wooden block, so they come here and they feed. It's kind of like a feeding station for them. And even when I do that, I'm thinking and telling myself like, where's the shape, where's the negative shape in the shape, and I'm just adding details here and there. Even though I'm using Payne's gray, and I'm going to be combining, and I'm going to treat as a single shape than anything else. And I'm also trying to make a confident stroke in my brush. You could see that's a crisp line I just made through my brush. For at the bottom, I'm also using a little bit of burnt amber in it as well, because I want to have a little bit of details in there. And there's a little bit of dark green like moss happening, so I also added that as well. So we are almost at the end of our painting, but like the painting looked really weak. You could see like it looks like a white space because it's a winter scene. What else you can add? So then it will be nice to add like a little bit of dead grass here and there. So I thought it will be nice to do it. So I'll add it eventually. And for the dead grass, I'm using amber and burnt amber, and I take a small brush and I will just like make some crisp grass here and there. Even when I do it, I try to group it in a way that it's kind of not like everything looks similar. I want to break the shapes differently here and there as well. You could see even in the reference it wasn't there, but I'm adding like changing and doing whatever I want. Even in the midground, I'm just creating marks here and there just to have some kind of details here and there, because I don't want to have like a big white space in my painting. So I'll keep building this, keep adding this detail till I'm happy with it, and so that like my old painting have some kind of details in there, and there is not like a big white shape in our painting. And you could see I also made a painting in a way that it's kind of like having a S curve in our painting. You could see the deer's kind of like in a pattern of a S, so it kind of like goes and takes in our painting as well. I'm excited to paint this part. I'm gonna take Payne's Gray, and I make sure that I use a little bit of a tiny brush for this. So the antlers are a little bit of an angle, so I want to make sure that I achieve that, and I also want to make sure it looks sharp and neat. Because this is our major figure, I want like everybody to look at this than anything else in our painting. And I'm also making sure to take my time. This also sped up 2 times as well, so even though my strokes looks really slow, but like, you know, I took my time to do this. So I'm also adding antlers in the midground and the background as well, and I'm also making sure to have it really loose, and I'm also wearing the shapes and the lines in the midground and the background, because the foreground tends to have thicker, and as it goes down it recedes and disappears. So we are almost at the end of our painting. I think we just have to add the shadows at the bottom of that wooden thing, then we can call it a day. So first I add the shadows for the foreground deer. Then I'm using a darker shape using burnt amber or whatever pigments you can find, but make sure it's darker. And I'm taking clean water and I want to soften it, because since it's a overcast day, there's not going to be any sharper shadows on the ground. So I soften up a little bit here and there, then it's good to go. So I'm also going to add the shadows for the other deers in the midground and the background as well, but it's a mere mark, nothing like super fancy. But once we added this shadows, it kind of looks like, you know, everything standing on the ground. And I'm also taking some clean water and softening the edges. Since it's a overcast scene, I don't want to have a sharper shadows in my scene. I also thought that it would be nice to have a darker shadow on the foreground, because so it brings things in the front. Since there is a lot of water in the brush or in the paper, and it will dry out. And let's add some birds, and that's it, folks. We are enough for a painting journey. I did do one part after I finished this painting, is pushing the background far away, because it coming too close to me, and I took a asphalt brush, like a flat brush, and I taped my watercolor paper on a paper block or a cardboard block, and I flipped over, and I used the flat brush to get rid of the paint using clean water. And I took the paint and I just dried it out, and that's it. That's all I did. So now it's your turn. Take this tutorial and watch it as much as time you want, and come up with your own impressions, and have fun painting, guys. Thanks again for watching this wildlife painting video tutorial with me. Let me know what you learned from this video and what's your favorite color in this painting. If you have any other questions or subjects you want me to cover on watercolors, write me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And please do share with your friends and family. And good luck with your painting, folks.